E12 of Breaking News Bears. I'm the host for today, Evan Davis, joined with Mario Russo and Mateo Ruiz. How are we doing, guys? We're in the home stretch of the semester, trying to pump out as much content as we can while not failing our classes. So
Yeah.
how are we doing?
No, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm good. We're staying afloat. That's always a positive. And of course, baseball is the one reliever here that's helping me go along the way. Something we're going to be talking about throughout this episode today. So we got a fun one queued up for you. Don't you guys worry. But Mateo, how's your week going? How's your semester coming to a close? Where are you at right now?
Yeah, it's a lot harder to get your work done when you got to pencil off 4 hours a night to watch baseball, but it's definitely worth it. It is definitely worth it.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the sports make it a lot easier to not want to go mentally insane. So, yeah, that's fair. So let's start off with your guys' team. I guess my second team. We got the Toronto Blue Jays, who are coming in hot, starting off 3-1. They were definitely a team that everyone had their eyes on after making the Matt Chapman deal. A lot of people, including myself, and obviously you two, thought that just the Jays were one piece away, and it was either get a third baseman, get a second baseman, try to figure out one more piece in that infield. And they got Matt Chapman, who hit his first home run for the Blue Jays at home, which is awesome. Unfortunately, it was in a loss, but I mean, the team offensively has just been electric, to say the least. I mean, coming back on opening day after Berrios had a not ideal opening day start. But, Mario, I'll ask you first. You had the privilege of going to that game.
I did.
So what was that like?
Oh, well, the atmosphere for Berrios was very bittersweet. People were really trying to urge him on in that first inning where he got pulled, trying to get him going, and it just could not go. He was not having it. And I think a lot of that was the nerves. I mean, you're playing in front of a huge fan base here in Toronto who are extremely passionate about baseball, despite what people say. Torontonians love to see their baseball. They haven't seen a home opener, I think, 3 years, something around that. It's been quite a while with all these
2019
stuff. Yeah, 2019. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time coming. There was energy. I went to the game myself, and I missed the full opening ceremony because my subway got all delayed and messed up. So I got there right at first pitch, right when Semien, former Blue Jay himself, hit one out of the ballpark to stun Rogers Center. But yeah, Berrios, I'm going to really chalk this one up to nerds. He's a terrific pitcher. He was signed to be a terrific pitcher. He was traded to be a terrific pitcher. He was a great starter last year. I'm going to see him continue that success throughout this year. One bad game is not what a season makes, as the old saying goes. Jose Berrios is still a phenomenal guy, phenomenal talent. I really got to chalk that up to nerves. That's all I got to say. I mean, the crowd was there. The crowd was loving it. I was loving it. Seeing baseball for the first time in a while. I think the last time I went was Josh Donaldson's return to Toronto from the Atlanta Braves. So quite a while, but great atmosphere, great team to watch. And they're going to be a great squad to watch going forward.
Yeah. And Mateo, what are your thoughts so far that opening weekend at the Rogers Center? And I believe now they're in New York taking on the Yankees tonight.
Yeah, I'm not too worried like Mario about the whole Berrios thing. I don't read too much into, the first start that a pitcher has in a year, because as we've seen throughout the league, there've been a lot of great pitchers who have had really shaky starts to start the season off. So that doesn't really worry me. For Berrios, I think it was more of like a feel thing. I mean, he didn't have the fastball command, and the curveball that he's known for obviously just wasn't like breaking as much as it usually does and what you can expect him to do, right? So I wouldn't read too much into it. I'm not particularly considered about the kind of season like that. This is going to be the kind of season we're going to expect from Berrios, but I've seen a lot of great things from the Jays. We've got a great start from Manoah I think it was last night against New York.
Last night. Yeah.
Who knows? We might have a Yankee killer on the roster, right?
Yeah,
it's always needed.
It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time.
Berrios' ERA is 108, so definitely can't get any worse than that.
It can't.
So,
and it won't. Yeah. He'll definitely come back to earth next start. I'm not worried about it at all.
100%. I think we even saw guys like Corbin Burns, who didn't have a walk for that extended period of time, and his first two batters this new season, he walks the first two guys, and it's just like, what the heck's going on?
Even Urias didn't even.
We don't need to talk about that right now.
We're going to get to it. Okay.
We don't need to talk about him, all right?
I do want to ask one thing. And I was watching the games live and on TV, and I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this. So as we all know, and it's going to be a common theme throughout the show, shortened spring training. Is that more like worse for the batter or is it worse for the pitcher? Because what we've seen so far and with the guys that we're going to be discussing in the show, it looks as though the pitchers are going to be the ones that are really taking the bitter edge of that sword. Like you look at Barrios and Mateo, you mentioned it was a feel thing. Well, you're not going to get as much feel for the baseball. I know personally from playing in the early months in my career and in the Mays and a little bit into early June, I don't have that feel yet because I haven't been on a field for very long. I can maybe chalk that up, and I'm obviously not as skilled, of course, but I could chalk that experience up towards maybe what these players are feeling like in spring training. They haven't had anything really under their belt, anything sustainable. But no, what is your guys' thoughts on it? Because it's looking this way. I always was a firm believer it was the hitter because they didn't see a lot of baseballs. And we all know how hard it is to hit a baseball in this day and age. But I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I definitely think it was harder for the pitchers.
Yeah.
Also, it's because like it's weird. It was a shortened spring training, and like when you're a GM of the, I'm sorry, not a GM. When you're the coach and manager of the team, it's like, well, do we really want this starting pitcher, like let's say Barrios, pitching 5 innings or 6 innings in spring training when we also want to see what our younger guys can do? And it's just, it was kind of difficult, and it's definitely harder for the pitchers to adapt. And we've seen that. I mean, like you look at guys, even like Max Fried, who didn't have the most ideal first start. We talked about Julio Urias, even Walker Buehler. Like, I know I'm just being a bias here. Those are the guys I've seen. But then like on the flip side, you're seeing some pitchers respond differently to it. I think it's just more pitchers because it's harder to find your command rather than it is to find your bat, because one swing and you're good, but one strikeout doesn't mean you're back to being that elite pitcher.
Yeah, I think the other thing to consider here is, the pitchers are having to adjust to a new baseball again for the first, or not for the first time, for like the millionth time in the last 3-4 seasons that we swapped the baseball out just seemingly on a whim. And we've seen how that affects pitchers. We've seen how initially you have a spike in control issues, as that might have been what's been happening in that Washington, New York series as well. I don't know if we're going to talk about it today, but obviously a lot of lack of control from those young Washington pitchers that have had no time at all to get used to the new baseball. And, you're forcing pitchers to figure it out in 3 weeks. And it's not only is it dangerous for your players, as we've seen, but it's also going to lead to some pretty uncharacteristically bad starts. And I think that's definitely what you can attribute Barrios and Gausman and, all the other great pitchers in the league that have had crappy starts. I think Cole even pitched poorly on opening day too. Everybody's got the same complaints. It's no secret that there's something going on in the shadows with Major League Baseball, but the ball's different and the pitchers are going to have to get used to it again. And they just didn't have enough time to do that this year.
Garrett Cole's complaint was that opening day started 4 minutes later than what he was thinking. So he's like, did you see that? Like,
it did actually, yeah.
Like that's why his start was horrible, because he was supposed to start at 12:08, but the game started at 12:12, so it ruined his whole mojo.
I think his whole day was ruined. He saw Josh Donaldson hit a walk-off hit. Like, dude is just not having a good day on the mound. Like, that's an awkward moment. Do you go? I don't think he even went in to like give him a nice.
No, nothing at all. It's the weirdest dynamic.
And like I remember just seeing like memes about like Donaldson talking to Garrett Cole like during spring training, and Garrett Cole's like, just get the F out of my go get out of my face. But another team that I want to talk about that is hot and usually has this consistency of being hot early and then kind of coming back down to earth is the San Diego Padres, who are currently 4-1. The pitching has been a lot better, I would say, to start the year. We saw Sean Manaea throw a no-hitter through 8 innings, I believe it was, against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have Hugh Darvish, who has definitely picked it up from last year. I mean, it's a lot easier for them to pick it up. Like, I'm not trying to like hate on them because they're the Padres, but let's be honest, like their pitching wasn't the best last year. I don't think they had a pitcher with an ERA below 3. I think their lowest one might have been a 3.8 from Hugh Darvish, if I'm not mistaken. So, Sean Manaea was a great pickup. Their offseason was kind of lackadaisical prior to that, but no, they've been great. Pitchers are 3rd in strikeouts for them. Batters are 3rd in hits. And Eric Hosmer is hitting above 500 after a guy that they were considering trading. They brought in Luke Voit for just to see maybe if we can get off Hosmer. But I mean, he's definitely, it's only been 5 games, but you're still hitting, every other at bat. So Mario, what do you make of this? We've seen the Padres always get hot and then kind of cool down after a while. So what are your thoughts about this start?
So if I'm not mistaken, and I'd love to go look back at it, but I remember I made the comment, I'm sure Mateo even tagged along with it as well. This team is not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They just could not execute for the life of them. The pitchers included. That was a huge downfall to them last season. They were a team, Evan, you can attest to this, watching them much more than we did, hanging in with the Dodgers for the beginning of the year. They looked like they were going to take it. They were a strong team. Everyone was convinced, hey, these Dodgers, man, they're not the leaders of the NL West anymore. We have a new sheriff in town. And then as the summer months hit, complete downfall. And I don't know what you credit that to. I think it's just a lack of consistency, and that's going to be the big thing going forward. But what we've seen so far in these 5 games, small sample size, I know, but the pitching is complete and it's looking complete. I thought their pitching was a top 5 rotation in all the MLB just because of the guys they have purely based on name value. Name value can go a very long way for a lot of teams. These guys are experienced. They have a lot of things under the belt. You're not turning that 5th or 4th start over to a rookie guy who doesn't have that much feel for the baseball or hasn't been in that situation. These guys have all been and done that show and dance. These guys, if they can keep the consistency up and continue to knock off some hot teams. I know they haven't had it right now, but they're facing the Giants, if I'm not mistaken, as we speak. That could be a big momentum booster for these guys and showing them they can get it done against, I'd say, some relatively decent competition, especially in their division. So it all chalks up about how much consistency we can get out of these guys. But you look at the players on the mound. Clevenger is one. Blake Snell, I haven't looked at his numbers just yet, but I'm assuming with the way that the season is shaping out for them, it's been pretty solid. They have the guys there. It's all about putting it together. And they have a new manager in town as well, if I'm not mistaken. Bob Melvin is taking over. I watched him extensively with Oakland. I know what this guy can do. He's going to be a lot harsher on these guys. He has expectations. He's going to make sure that he meets those goals. I think these pitchers are just going to be the ones that are going to go along with the ride. So it's going to be interesting what these Padres do going forward. Great start for them, though. And I know we're going to talk about the Dodgers in a little bit, but might be time to call again the 2nd year in a row. Maybe another new sheriff in town.
Another new sheriff in town.
Yeah.
I mean, like I will, Mateo, before you go, I will say this though. I mean, we did see, the only reason I bring it up is because we did see this last year where Blake Snell looked like the Tampa Bay Blake Snell. And then as the season went on, it was like, where did he go? And he was making all those comments, I should be higher overall in the video game, and then he actually lowered his overall by 3. So it's it hasn't been great, but yes, Bob Melvin is definitely a huge upgrade over I don't even care who they had before. But Mateo, what are your thoughts on the Padres? Still without Tatis for a while, so do you see this as like it's just a hot streak, like all the teams go through it, even the bad ones go through it, and then sometimes it's like, what happened after?
Yeah, well, I mean, as much as we're 5 games into the season, I don't think, the playoff schedule is going to hold the way it is. I don't think that the Padres are going to finish at 800, right? But another thing you have to consider is that, this is Arizona that they played against. Like, they opened the season 4 games against Arizona, and it doesn't get much easier than that. These were games that the Padres were supposed to win, that any legitimate playoff team is supposed to win. And credit to them, they handled their business. They took 3 of them, and they've got really great pitching out of Manaea. They got some really clutch hitting out of Hosmer, if I'm not mistaken, and some all around just great performances. But that's what's supposed to happen. I'd be more concerned if they couldn't handle business against Arizona. If Arizona maybe took 2 and got the better of them, forced to split the series, I'd be like, whoa, maybe this is the Padres of last year. Maybe we're starting to see a little bit of their old ways where they played down to their competition last year and they couldn't beat playoff teams. But they've handled their business. They took 3 against Arizona, and that's what you have to do to start the year. And credit to them. So it's an A+ so far. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how it goes. I mean, it's been, you're right. Arizona doesn't really have anyone besides Ketel Marte, even on the pitching side as well.
And the guy with the best last name in the league. Let's not kid ourselves here. Beer and
I
don't even want to know his first name. I know his last name for sure.
I think it's like Sean Beer.
I'd Seth, I think.
Seth Beer. Come on now.
Yeah, that's he hit a walk-off home run on National Beer Day. I mean, like,
they don't come any better. You believe in miracles?
Just give him the key to the city already,
right?
Yeah,
even the key to Arizona Coyotes arena. Maybe could do something a little better.
Yeah, definitely. Now I want to switch over to teams that definitely came into the season with higher expectations that just haven't really opened up that hot and not what we're used to seeing. And unfortunately, one of those teams has to be one of my own, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who lost the season series to Colorado in Colorado for the first time since 2018. So I guess, I mean, like, I'm not going to make excuses, but, one of those times you're going to lose a series. And unfortunately, they start off the year like that. I think now they go to Minnesota for 2, and then they're able to finally go home. I don't get why they weren't able to go home, but regardless, Julio Urias and Walker Buehler didn't have the best starts of the year. Walker Buehler gave up, I believe, 2 in the first inning and then kind of controlled the rest of the game. Julio Urias was god awful the entire game. It was hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely turned it off after the second inning. There, can't lie. It was a little bit of a barn burner, but I've never heard of this guy Connor Joe. And in the what was it, the second game, dude, like Blake Trinan, I would say is a top 7 relief pitcher in baseball. I think it's fair to say that. And he left a slider up there, and Connor Joe smoked it. As soon as it left the bat, I was like, oh fuck.
I gave Evan a lot of grief for that in the chat. For those of you who remember, Connor Joe was my make or break pick for the Rockies, so I'm very proud of that one. We're seeing it really early in the season.
Yeah, and apparently, he was in the Dodgers organization before, so not one of our best moments, not one of the best moments there, but absolutely smoked Trinan. And then in the third game, it was just absolute shit show. The first game, they came back, scored all their runs in the first inning, so it definitely hasn't been the best 3 games for them to start the season, given all the expectations that went into it. But Mateo, I'll start with you. I know, like, it's kind of hard to watch games with school being in the way right now, but like, what is your assessment of how it's been, like, the first 3 games? What is your overall assessment?
Yeah, those West Coast games can be a little tough, but I did manage to catch the Connor Joe walk off. I will say that much. But
the one thing you watched.
Yeah, I had to. I heard he was up. I heard it was a close game, and I heard
he was up.
You know what? Maybe you're the bad luck. Can you, like, stay away from LA?
I gotta stand by my predictions. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Dodgers fan, you're not expecting, obviously, your all-star team to lose to the Rockies, and I wouldn't expect it to continue on throughout the season. I've seen all over social media, like, is this another Lakers situation where we get like a super team and then they just like fold instantly? And no. It's a long season. There's still like 159 games to go, so I wouldn't panic. The Rockies are not going to be this good. I mean, the firepower in their offense that we've seen, like, against some really good pitchers, is probably not super sustainable. I know, as a Jays fan, I was a little surprised by what Texas had in store for some of our good pitchers too, but I feel like it's just a thing that's happening throughout the league. It's the hitters are more ready than the pitchers are, and that's sort of what you're seeing. But in that one win, I saw some really encouraging stuff. I know Freddie Freeman hasn't had the most, like, glorious start to his Dodgers career, but in the one win that they did get against the Rockies, I think he got on base 3 times, I want to say. And so, it's a productive game. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of nerves to shake out. You're the guy now in a big city, and all the eyes are kind of on you after the move that you just made. So it's important that he gets a little bit more comfortable and he gets sort of, that routine under him. Maybe he collects a few hits, gets a hit streak going, and then all of a sudden it's like he was from LA, right? But yeah, I wouldn't look too far into this slow start from the Dodgers. I mean, the Rockies aren't this good of an offensive team, and the Dodgers aren't this bad at pitching, despite, like, even though they have concerns. So yeah, it's just ride the wave, see how the rest of the season goes. But I'm not panicking just yet. This Dodgers team is too good to flop the way they did against the Rockies.
Yeah, no, also just maybe the hype of opening day, weekend, just, finally having fans back and all that. Just, I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of how the Rockies absolutely piss stomped my team. But,
well, I mean, you talk about teams having, like, the whole World Series hangover kind of thing. It kind of felt like the Dodgers came into the season thinking they were going to be champions, and so maybe like a reverse World Series hangover kind of deal where they're planning ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, downtown LA already has the blue and white.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much energy around this team. There's so much media attention around this team that it's only a matter of time before the pressure was going to build up, and it's just unfortunate that they had to lose too.
Yeah, for sure. Mario, anything else you want to add?
I do want to add one thing, and I'm gonna tell you are absolutely right. This is an extremely long season. We know the Dodgers, what they're going to do, what they're going to get done down the stretch, but I really hope that, and I know it's a small sample size, but Evan, you speak as from a fan experience. You never want to lose to the Colorado Rockies, especially away from your home ballpark. I think I could speak that for just about all MLB fans of any team, and more specifically the Dodgers fans. They're in the division. You don't want to drop games that you could mean something potentially, although I don't think they will be down the stretch, but you don't want to drop these games regardless. I hope Dave Roberts maybe uses this as, listen, we are not the top dog. We have to not reason our expectations. It's always good to keep the expectations high, and they should be because the team is just that talented. But say, listen, our job is nowhere from complete. They're thinking game 40, game 50, game 60. It's game 3 and 4. Let's take it as what it is. Take it as how it's coming. And Dave Roberts is a veteran, classy manager. He even put it on. I think he put money. He put his words to the radio and said, our team is winning the World Series, and off on that quote. That is a huge statement. And I love to see the boldness from the former World Series champ. But no, I hope the coach uses this as a little bit of motivation, a little kick in the pants. Don't panic at all, because we know what this Dodgers team is going to do and what they have done in the past. But use it as a little bit of motivation. This team is much better than what they showed in that 4-game series with the Colorado Rockies. So let's see it, and don't just take it a game at the time. You're in a great position with a great group of players that you have the capabilities to go the long stretch and get it done. You're going to wear everyone else down. It's inevitable. Just take it as it comes. Don't get too ahead of yourself, refocus, and let's see some more Dodgers wins, and maybe Freddie Freeman playing a big part with it, because the hometown kid has to get on the board at some point. I can't wait to see it, but no, that's all I got to say for the Dodgers. Two ways of looking at it, but nothing to panic about.
I do want to ask one. Oh, sorry, you go first.
No, I was going to say, you talk about managers to begin with. Bud Black, one of my favorite managers in the league, obviously, of the Rockies, gets his 1,000th win too with that last one against the Dodgers too. So you got to feel good about that, even though Evan might not.
Yeah. You can get it another day. Don't really care. But I did want to ask you guys this one last question before we move on. Look, I was watching all 3 games, and the one thing that has definitely been an eye-opener is the fact that Cody Bellinger has still just been absolutely rancid, to say the least. He's in the last year of arbitration. I don't know what his market value is. Like, I'm thinking, like, is he going to even get like 10 million from a team? Like, I know obviously some team is going to pay him just because it's Cody Bellinger and you're basing it off of potential, but it just hasn't been there. And I was just thinking, like, God, if this continues, like, do you throw him in a trade with a prospect and see if you can get like a starting pitcher? Let's say, like, if Andrew Heaney doesn't work out, or Tony Gonsolin is like, he's an opener in my eyes. I don't think he's still ready yet to be a 6-7 inning guy. If Dustin Mays, Tommy John doesn't heal properly as the rehab process goes on, like, do you guys see Bellinger getting traded? Because honestly, I kind of want it to happen, because I don't know what they would pay him, when the time comes, because this is the last year before he can hit the market. So, Mateo, I'll ask you, like, if this continues to go south, I mean, the Dodgers have a great prospect pool that they could throw in someone and say, yo, like, maybe even a Frankie Montas from Oakland, if that, just for the A's to get some sort of name value, name recognition, although it might not be the best, at least you have a name there. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense for the A's, but for whatever team it is, it's going to be a real buy low situation. And if you manage to pull off a trade this year, I think you're going to have to deal with the $17 million price tag that obviously LA is going to eat some of, but then you've got another year of arbitration, and then he's going to hit free agency. And a guy like Bellinger with his pedigree, even though he hasn't had a lot of success in recent years, is probably still going to get a pretty decent paycheck when he hits free agency. So I don't know if it really makes sense for the A's, who have been like super reluctant to spend, and we know that they're trying to get to the bottom of the league's payroll kind of thing. But for any team that takes him on, I mean, the one thing that hasn't wavered in Bellinger's game is the fact that he's still he's a plus defender. No matter where you put him at first base in the outfield, he's got the sprint speed metrics, he's got the fielding metrics, he's got good range in the outfield. Whether you want to go eye test or advanced metrics, he's going to make the plays on defense. And so there's consistency in that. And so there are going to be a bunch of teams that are willing to take a gamble, because he's still a quality center fielder, a guy you can put out there every day. And there's a chance that he's got a good bat. Right. So that still might be an attractive option for, teams that aren't in contention, and for teams that might be looking to maybe replace a center fielder as theirs gets older. I'm thinking right now, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe the Angels, as Mike Trout, we've talked about them having to move Mike Trout to the corner outfield as he sort of gets a little older. Maybe we see Bellinger move to the other side of LA and he fills in that center field role. And, he's like 27 years old. He'll have a little bit of longevity. That defense will it'll still be solid for at least another 3-4 years. So whatever team is taking a chance on him is also going to get really solid defense in center field. And so that softens the blow a little bit for whichever team decides to take him on.
Yeah, don't give him the pleasure of staying in LA. Mario,
just throwing a name out there.
Yeah. And anything else you want to say? Your segue over to the next thing. It was just a thought in my head, because obviously I know his defense is definitely exceptional. He's made great plays in the outfield, but it's just all of his at bats, he's undercutting the ball and just flying out. And the issue is that since he's undercutting it, it's not deep enough to like score a run. Like it's just barely getting into the outfield.
Yeah, he looks like a completely different player since that World Series run from the LA Dodgers, and he played a very vital part in that. He look, at the age of 26, former MVP, I believe, former World Series champ. There's not a lot of 26-year-olds in the game that has that sort of resume in their hands, and he does. The thing, and it's absolutely true to what Mateo was saying, his defense is stellar. That's a given. No matter how it goes, no matter what slump he's in, he's always going to play that other side of the ball very well. So it's going to be very valuable to other teams. They want to take a chance on him. But you look at Bellinger, and it's very unfortunate. I think he's playing himself a little bit out of LA. Like, they're giving him so many chances. You see him on the lineup card almost every day, Evan, and it's just because of the pedigree he's got. He's really strictly going off of loyalty ties, which as a player, it's not something that you want to find yourself in. That's a pretty tough situation to go and succeed in. You're not there, and I bet it's in his mind. You're not there because you're performing. You're there because you're Cody Bellinger, and you don't want to be in there just because of name value. You want to be in there because you think, and the guy who's putting you in the lineup, Dave Roberts, knows that you're going to be producing. It's not like that, and it's a very long slump. And we love to use that radar. Evan, you're familiar with it on Leafs Line. The color radar of what a player is in, what a team is in. Is it
I'm
yellow?
past red.
Is it pink? Is it salmon? We've thrown in the salmon shade before. Is it red? Leafs fans have been accustomed to seeing the red one a couple times, but it's getting to, I wouldn't say it's past red, but it's very darn close. Now, I don't watch the team on a daily basis like yourself, but from an outside perspective, spring training was a brutal stint for Bellinger.
Yeah.
Last season was a brutal stint for Bellinger. I believe a little bit in that playoff was a brutal stint for Bellinger. It's really been a tough going over the last year or so. I remember when he was on point, I think that injury when he was celebrating with give me the name.
Oh yeah, when he celebrated with Justin Turner.
Yeah,
he popped his. Oh no, not Justin Turner. He celebrated with I think Chris Taylor, and he popped his shoulder.
One of the two. He pops his shoulder. A really rookie move. It's a very dumb move.
Can anybody explain to me why the players do, like, they basically like expose their, like,
they're hyped, and that's not the way to do it.
Yeah,
it's the stupidest.
We've seen players get injured in celebrations all the time. You remember Kendrys Morales with the Angels, how he had that really bad, great career he was having, and then he, walks it off and goes to home plate, and he does that thing where you jump on home plate and his knee buckles under him and he like breaks his leg kind of thing, and throws his whole career in a tailspin. It's just, we see players get injured celebrating all the time, and it's one of the most
so
stupid ways to get hurt.
Like, I don't get that one, because you're basically putting like your shoulder blade.
It's if you think you can throw a ball 100 miles an hour, you think your shoulder's gonna blow up when you hit it against somebody else's? Like, no. It's just one of those things that it sucks when it happens, but it's just, you can't predict it and you can't avoid it.
Well, yeah, he was just going in so aggressively that like the force is what got to him. But
I mean, to be fair, like, I'm not going to say that that's the main reason, the be all end all why he's not succeeding. I think a lot of mechanics has to do with that. You look at his mechanics. I've seen it from before when he was on his hot streak, when he was tearing up the ball, into now it's completely different. The swing path, the bat path is completely altered. I think he has to work a lot more on his craft, on his stance. Don't change everything, because you're an identity. You have an identity when you approach that batter's box. Don't change that, but it could be between the ears, or it could be the swing, because I've noticed changes in both, and there's got to be changes in his game for the Dodgers to have success this year. I know he's a valuable piece. He's still a valuable piece. Dodgers are a deep team, but you can only go so deep with a guy like Cody Bellinger on your bench, and if he is on your bench, that's a little bit of a problem for the player rather than the team. But it's going to be something they explore down the stretch. And I mean, again, beginning of the season, and it's not just the beginning of the season for Cody Bellinger. It's the beginning of the preseason. It's the beginning of the postseason. It's the beginning of last season. So it's getting a little concerning. Dodgers fans should be concerned. Evan, I know you've taken it up on that offer, but enough Cody Bellinger. Let's get into the real fun stuff about some young guns in this game.
Yeah, no, we're going to segue over to the Atlanta Braves, who we talk about the World Series hangover. Maybe the Braves are in a little World Series hangover. Just got dominated by Hunter Green in his first MLB start. I mean, that guy's going to be a stud.
Well,
I mean, I think he's developed beautifully, has definitely earned the right we've seen to be that first overall pick that he was. Just incredible. The fastball's great. The slider's great. I mean, he just dummied the World Series champions, which I've never seen. I mean, I don't watch a lot of baseball games during the regular season just because there's so many. But I mean, he just looked phenomenal there. And then the Braves just lost 11-2 to the Nationals. I'm assuming Juan Soto had 11 RBIs because I don't know who else on that team can really hit. But it's just, and Max Fried, Ian Anderson. I have Ian Anderson in fantasy, and he gave me negative 15 points. So we're having a talk with him. 6 walks and 1 strikeout from Ian Anderson. I would like an Uno reverse card on that, but I don't know. Like, we saw this even last year. Like, it always just seems to be that the World Series hangover, you're getting the ring, you're staring at that more than you are on the field. But Mateo, what do you make of it? They're 2-3, so it's not like it's horrible, but you just look at the team that they're playing. It's the Reds and the Nationals, not 2 teams that were definitely more sellers than buyers in the offseason.
Yeah, that loss to the Nationals really sticks out at me. 11-2. I mean, you talked about maybe Juan Soto being the guy who went off, but it was actually Maikel Franco,
nice.
who went crazy. I think Maikel Franco.
I'm sorry.
Mario is definitely familiar
sentence,
with in his time at Philly. I think he had about 5 runs, and I think it was a 4-hit game for him as well. So totally went off. I was in and out of that game as it went on a little bit, and trying to watch one of my other picks to be, to have a really good year this year was the Braves pitcher on the mound that day. Unfortunate, but it was Huascar Ynoa, who was the guy that I really liked last year, but he went down. Obviously, he had a similar injury to Devin Williams where he punched a wall and messed up his hands, and then that sort of sent his whole year last year into a tailspin. But before that, he was really great, and I was expecting him to come back and have a successful season this year, and was looking for him to get off to a good start. And then Maikel Franco entered, and
never heard of that.
Didn't really let that happen. But 11-2 against the Nationals, that's just a brutal way to start the season. And you don't want the reigning World Series champions to lose to a team who's probably going to be last in the MLB that badly. I mean, it's a tough pill for those players to swallow, though, obviously, because they're on top of the world. They just won a championship. I don't know if you guys saw that ring, but it's crazy. It's got lights on the inside.
God,
I'd be distracted by it too. I wouldn't be able to focus for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
So
it's gorgeous.
The Braves are going to have a little bit of a period where they, have to get over themselves a little bit and realize that, not everything's going to be handed to them next year as well, that they've got to, work just as hard as they did last year, even harder, actually, because teams are going to be gunning for them. Every team's got Atlanta circled on that schedule. They want to make a statement, and Washington got a chance to make their statement. And while it probably isn't going to mean anything in the long term, it's it's a big win for the Nationals, 11-2 against the reigning champs. That's embarrassing for the Braves, but also a point of pride for the Nationals, and something that they're definitely going to be able to rally on for the next little bit too. So it's all about keeping emotions in check. I mean, Snicker's going to have some work cut out for him in the locker room this year, trying to manage emotions and everything, and trying to make all the new guys fit together and repeat what you did last year and capture that magic again. I think the Braves will be fine, but it's they've had a lot of shaky performances against some young and unproven teams. So we'll see how that goes.
Mary, I just want to piggyback off of what Mateo was saying.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, let's look at what the Braves were doing this time last year. They were not a successful team till midway through the season, and they turn on an absolute hot streak, and lo and behold, they're lifting a trophy in the time that matters most. So, I mean, it is just as concerning. Don't get me wrong. I find it in a very similar spot to the Los Angeles Dodgers, because the talent is there. The rotation is there. Everything is well off. They're supposed to be beating these teams, no question about it. But this team still has a lot of growing pains going with them. Like, you look at a guy like who I guess is returning now he's been out for quite a while, Ronald Acuna Jr. He's getting his feet wet a little bit. So they got a lot of guys on the mend, looking like a little bit of a different team despite how similar they look. But No, just give it a little bit more time. It's never going to be perfect over the opening stretch. And of course, the World Series hangover exists with this team. Don't dwell on it too long, but definitely a real big kick in the pants. And I know this Georgia team, they're going to try to flex their muscles as best they can when they get back home and all that stuff. But they're not overly concerned. And there's a lot of teams looking to make a statement against them, like you mentioned, Mateo. I know my Phillies, they're doing very well on their own right now, and I'm not going to talk about them because this isn't the Phillies podcast by any means, but a team like them who is going to be getting into a big groove despite their best players like Bryce Harper not playing the best. There's going to be teams gunning for that first spot, which Atlanta is looking to be the one, at least preseason rankings suggest the one that's going to be taking the throne. So Atlanta's got to get on their toes. Nothing overly concerning. Obviously, it's very early in the season, but a guy like Snicker, his pedigree as a manager, now a World Series champ, he knows how to get his stuff in line, his ducks in a row. Don't expect the Atlanta Braves to be losing games like this much longer because they're a much better team than what we've been seeing so far.
Yeah, I respect what you were saying. This just popped in my head now because don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, but what do you guys think of like the New York Mets pitching? I've noticed that, like, obviously DeGrom is out. I think Taijuan Walker only made it 2 innings last night, but he was dominant in those 2 innings. But I mean, that doesn't matter really because he's out. And it's just, I mean, it's starting to get a little concerning just with, Bassett was phenomenal in his first start.
They had four great starts to open the year.
He made his first start. Yeah, their pitchers did start well, but now you see DeGrom out, Taijuan Walker out. I mean, McGill is looking like the new Jacob DeGrom here. So I don't know.
So much fun to watch.
They're just pulling pitchers out of their tuchus, and they're turning into elite stars. Well, I don't know if I want to use the other word, but I mean, it's like, do you guys find it concerning though that, I mean, obviously they're great starts, but it's just all about sustainability and being able to be consistent here, and just having Taijuan Walker, I think, shoulder inflammation as well. So I can't remember, it's on CBS Sports. It's like one of the analysts that was a former GM was saying how these shoulder inflammation injuries can be months.
Yeah.
And if now you're losing Taijuan Walker and Jacob DeGrom for maybe possibly until June, I mean, like, what are we thinking here, boys? I mean, obviously they're getting quality starts out of their pitchers, but can we expect to see that until June?
I think it might be a bit of like a spoils of riches kind of situation, because if you're rolling out Scherzer, Bassett, and Carrasco as your top 3, and you're getting like an actual quality version of Carrasco that we're used to seeing with in his days with Cleveland, if that's your top 3, you're going to win a lot of games, and you might have to make up some of those 4 or 5 starts with, McGill's been great this year, but whether that's sustainable, we'll see throughout the year. But you make that up with minor league depth, that's still a better rotation than over half the teams in the league have right now. Your top 3, even though you're missing 2 of your top 5, is still really competitive. So I wouldn't be particularly worried if I was the Mets. I mean, I know their team is kind of built around their starting rotation, and so it's obviously a bit of a bigger blow for them, but they definitely have the talent to get through some of these injuries before DeGrom Walker can.
And I mean, you're also even looking at a guy like Max Scherzer he wasn't ready for his scheduled start, and I don't know if that has to just do with age
or what Dave Roberts did to him last year.
I mean, no, Dave Roberts didn't do anything. Max Scherzer's just a little bum. He's just upset, bitch.
Oh wow!
But
I'm gonna take that personally.
Mario, do you make anything of it? I know, obviously, Phillies fan, and you saw Kyle Schwarber and Castellanos absolutely rip it in that home opener. I mean, they definitely gave a sneak peek of what's to come for the next 4 years here. So what do you think, at least, of your division rival having a little injury woes?
I'm a big sucker for good competition, and I'm glad I'm seeing it between these two teams. The Phillies look like they're right there in the midst of it, in the midst of the battle for first and all that stuff. They're not looking like a team right now. I know it's extremely early, but right now they're not looking like a squad that's going to be going on hot and cold stretches. They look like they could level themselves out and quarrel a lot of success within them. So I'm not too worried about the Phillies, but I love what I'm seeing from the Mets. And guys, DeGrom is not even back. He's not even in the lineup. He's going to be there in June or whenever he returns. But look what they're doing with the guys there. Mateo, you mentioned the depth that this team has. Now you're seeing what's the results right in front of you. It's extremely phenomenal to see how far this team has come. They have a lot of pieces. Scherzer's going to be leading the starting rotation the whole way, but if Tajon Walker can wipe out that lost start that he had, and Bassett, man, you're talking about a guy who
It
you
went
can
so
maybe
under the radar too. That
so under
Bassett
the
move.
radar.
Like,
Nothing was
really?
reported on it. I just
I
looked it
thought
up.
it was like, oh really? Like I was like,
I honestly hadn't heard much about it at all. I might have just been not looking at the right places, but I feel like that Bassett deal was,
I don't know. I heard it all over
massively
Twitter.
underhyped. That's fair.
But no, like I'm looking at the stat line. I think 8 Ks, 1 walk from Chris Bassett.
Yeah,
like
I
that's
have him on fantasy too.
yeah. You're hoping that's not a one-hit wonder if you're a Mets fan, but this doesn't look like it is. This rotation looks like it has the pieces together, and they have the depth. If they can get a little bit more of the back end depth too, and with some of their other guys that are not just there yet, man, this team has the capabilities to compete for that spot that was once resided by the Atlanta Braves. So it's going to be a very fun dog race, a dog fight in the NL East. So I can't wait to see it all come into fruition and come unfold, because it's going to be fun. But let's explore a little bit more. Some guys that were pitching maybe against some NL East teams here.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We have Hunter Green, first overall pick, I believe it was in 2018. And I mean, he looks like the ace of the future for the Cincinnati Reds. If there's any glimmer of hope, it's Hunter Green. I mean, just look absolutely dominant, and the speed that he could throw the ball with. I mean, what is he, like 22, 23, and he's already clocking in at 100 miles an hour? I mean,
he hit 120 times.
Yeah. I mean,
in that game.
And I don't think I can't remember, but I know I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm trying to remember. I believe more than half of his at bats that he had, more than half of them he threw a strike on the first pitch. I can't remember exactly how many batters it was. I believe it was like 8 of 14. I could be completely wrong here, but I just remember hearing that like a majority of his first pitches were for strikes. And I mean, he just absolutely dominated some of these batters, and just making Austin Riley, who we consider to be a top 5 third baseman, arguably even top 3. I mean, just getting him on a slider, getting him swinging at dirt. I mean, it's incredible what he's been able to do. 5 Ks, 1 walk in his first start. Mario, I mean, if there's any hope for the Cincinnati Reds team, I think Hunter Green said, "Hold my beer," and he's like, "Yeah, I got you."
He is the future. You're absolutely right, Evan. I am really in love. I watched a little bit of his start when he was just ripping up the Atlanta Braves, and man, he carved that lineup very well. And I think he's going to be something that we see from this guy going forward. He is, I believe, a top end pick, if I'm not mistaken, from number one. Yeah. So
first overall pick.
Yeah, he's got the pedigree. He's got that nice signing bonus in his pocket. He knows what is up.
Comfortable. Yeah.
He's rolling, and he's got everything working for him right now. I'm really hoping, and I don't think this is very few Reds fans that may tune into this show. This is not going to be a one-hit wonder by any stretch of the imagination. This guy is good. If I'm going to give maybe a player comparison to maybe what we can expect to see from this guy, I'm hoping me and Mateos do not intertwine, but I got Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard.
You're good.
Is okay. Awesome. Noah Syndergaard is my guy. And the reason why I say this now, Syndergaard is a big boy. He's a tall, I think 6'6".
Yeah, he's
big
massive.
frame. He knows how to work his body. Now, I know Green is not the exceptional height that he is, that Syndergaard is, but if you want to look at control that this guy has with a lot of velocity, these two are just as identical. I know Syndergaard is one to hit those triple digits a couple times, not as much as the younger guys are nowadays, like Green is, the up and coming product for the Reds, but the control has always been there. It was never a question about that. So if you're mixing in control, speed, and a little bit of height as well, which is a very undermined factor when you're looking at a pitcher because of a lot more reach you have coming off the mound, you're just a lot more power on the downforce. And he is, I think that's a very clear-cut comparison. Now, one thing, Reds fans, that you're hoping, and I think this is going to have to go without being said, but the injury problems. You don't want to run into these injury problems with a guy like Syndergaard, someone who's known for throwing hard and has been paying the consequences from it. I think he suffered from, I don't want to say numerous Tommy Johns, but I'm sure there has to be one Tommy John surgery that he's had to suffer with. There's a lot of other injuries as well. But no, the one thing that you got to look forward to, Reds fans, and I know it's not a beacon of hope with the way your team is set right now, but this guy's going to be someone that you can roll with in the future very consistently. He's probably going to be the leader out of that rotation. Matter of now is if you can keep him. And the Reds have a very pretty agile tendency of getting their guys completely off and offloading all their high-end talents. And I don't think it's going to be the same with prospects. I do want to ask you guys, Matteo, you might know this a little bit more than me, but do you remember Nick Lodolo? Did
Oh, Nick
he?
Lodlow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do
Did he?
remember him.
Where
Yeah.
did he go? Is he still with the
Ooh,
Reds?
I
I
don't
really
know
hope he is
why
for
I
the sake of
thought
my argument here.
Oakland, but I'll look him up for a second if you want.
Now, I had his MLB The Show card, and it was in a Reds uniform, and he was carving up anyone else's lineup in Diamond Dynasty. But where does he play now? I'm hoping
No,
the
he's still with the
Reds.
Reds. He's
That's
still with the
awesome.
Reds. Yeah, you're
So,
good.
if Reds fans, I'm not very familiar with the team, but I know you guys like to offshore a lot of other guys, a lot of big veteran guys, other star players that you have in your team. If you keep him like Nick Lodolo, who was once another big prospect coming up and is continuously going to be a dominant force in the minors and how he works his way up with the Reds, keep these two pitchers. They're your future. These are the guys that you want to roll with. So that's all I've really got to say about Green here. He's going to be a phenomenal talent. And I can't wait to see his starts this year. Maybe even a candidate for Rookie of the Year, the way things are going. I know one start is not what a season makes, but a promising start is what a lot of heads are getting turned towards. And we are the victim of that as such.
Yeah, we've been talking about Hunter Green for too long for him not to be as good as we're expecting him to be. And all the signs point to that he's going to be a really great player. If I had to make a player comparison for him, just based on what I've seen so far, it's not going to be a player like Noah Syndergaard, but maybe a little more of an under the radar guy. But by no means is this a testament to like the quality of pitcher I think he is. I think, I'll just say it and then I'll defend it afterwards. But my player comparison for him is Nate Eovaldi.
Okay.
Who I think is a very, solid
slouch.
pitcher, a very underappreciated starting pitcher in the league. Obviously, the velocity is the main matchup there. I mean, I know there's a number of guys that can get up to 100 regularly, but Eovaldi's a guy who can do it regularly on a consistent basis and stay relatively healthy in recent years. But for me, what stuck out was a lot of the peripherals were kind of the same. So hard hit percentage very similar. We're seeing like the exit velocity very similar. We're seeing the barrel percentage very similar. Just the way he misses bats and the way he sort of uses that breaking ball to sort of offset his fastball, for me, in a little bit that I've seen of Hunter Green, really reminds me of the way Nathan Eovaldi, carries himself on the mound and sort of, plays the game of baseball. I mean, the one disparity here is the chase rate.
Mm-hmm.
And while we've seen a lot of swing and misses for Hunter Green, that he was able to get a lot of swing and misses both on the fastball and on that off-speed pitch, Eovaldi gets a lot of more swings on his off-speed pitches out of the zone. And that's not something that we've seen through Hunter Green just yet, just because he simply hasn't had to. Sorry, I can't talk right now. He simply hasn't had to just yet. But, as teams start to figure it out and as they sort of start to game plan for him a little bit further along in the season, then, we might start seeing that breaking ball, instead of clipping at the bottom of the zone and getting for a called strike, we might see him get a little more comfortable dipping it below the zone and getting a lot more of those chases and those, third strikes out of the zone like Eovaldi does, which makes him such a great pitcher. I think there's a lot of room for growth with Hunter Green, and I think Eovaldi's a really solid comparison. I don't think anybody would be ashamed to be compared to him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna pull the biasy out here, just for the sake of it, but I see Clayton Kershaw in him, just someone who came into the game being having the prediction of being, an elite dominant number one starter. And the first game I saw Hunter Green and just watching even his highlights, I'm like, this guy is definitely going to be a number one, at least within the next 3 years. I could see maybe just, next year getting into the 2 range and then getting into being your opening day starter in 2025. I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously 2 different pitchers. Kershaw kind of does more of the breaking ball stuff, and we're seeing more fastball pitching from Hunter Green, just because, I mean, he could clock it at 100.
He's got the fastball,
yeah. I mean, if you got your fastball, then screw the off-speed pitches, but I think just based off potential and excitement and hype. I mean, obviously Clayton Kershaw wasn't the number 1 pick in the draft, but coming in, he did have a lot of expectations, and he was able to eclipse them. And I don't see how Hunter Green cannot do that. But I want to switch over now to the batters who have also been making huge impacts. And let's start off with I believe another first overall pick, if I'm not mistaken, and Bobby Witt Jr. I could be wrong here.
Yes. I believe he is.
I believe he was a first overall pick.
Yep, first overall.
1-1.
Oh wow, look at Evan.
Oh, sorry, second overall.
Oh crap.
Who went first that year then?
I'm not sure, but I do have a stat page in front of me, and it was round 1 overall pick 2. So
that sucks. Well, whoever missed on him, That's unfortunate. But regardless, I mean, Bobby Witt Jr., he's already making web gems on the hot corner. We saw, I believe it was 2 nights ago, making a game saving play to throw out a runner at home. You know, he's already acquired his first hit in the major leagues. I think it was like an RBI double into the gap of
Game
left
winner.
field. Yeah, and it just looks like he's set for the majors. And I will say that, I mean, obviously small sample size, but I really give credit to Cincinnati, Kansas City, and then the next player we're going to talk about is Spencer Torkelson in Detroit. I give credit to the development because it seems like these guys are coming into the MLB at the right time. I don't think there's really a dispute to say that Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't look ready, that Hunter Green didn't look ready, that even Torkelson, who we'll get into, didn't look ready. I mean, you guys can also chime in on that, but like I'm just seeing that these guys have they've mesh so beautifully into their lineups and into their roles that they look ready from the start. And Bobby Witt Jr., who had a lot of hype at the Futures games, and you know, just even I believe his dad was in the MLB as well, and just having even the, you know, there is pressure when your dad plays in the league because it's like, oh, are you going to be just as good as your dad, or oh, you're only in the league because of your name. But Mario, I'll ask you, like Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, he's definitely he could be the future shortstop, third base. I mean, he's definitely going to play that left side of the field for the Royals, probably for the next 10, 15 years.
I have a lot to say about this kid just because he's probably going to be my next favorite player. He comes in a lot with a lot of swagger. He is fresh out of the minors. He has proven himself in the minors. He's ready to get things done. He's the future of this team by far. He's going to be a future phenomenal shortstop in the MLB in the years to come. I can put money on that for sure, just because what I've seen so far, not just in this few games. I'm not going to go with the small sample size, but I'm going to go with what I've been seeing from this guy coming up as he's grown in age. He's grown in a lot of maturity. And let's get one thing straight. I want to point out this one similarity between a lot of players that are the greats right now, dominating the game. What is the last name? What is the last thing in their last name? Junior. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Fernando Tatis Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. Those are just a few names of some of the greats in this game. I think it's a true fact. And I mean, I cannot say to experience this, but a lot of people do say this and a testament this to their terrific playing careers. If you're around the game for that much, if you're surrounded by the best of the best for that much time and that much duration, you're going to the ballpark, you're going through into your career in the minors, you're looking at these ballparks like, okay, these are not very big. These are little minor leagues, little league stadiums to us. And then you get to the major leagues, that upper deck is just an upper deck. It is nothing more, nothing less. It is just an extra row of seats, whether in comparison to some other guys who are coming up the natural way, getting it in through their own, not that Bobby Witt Jr. didn't get in through his own way, but if you're taking the more harder path and you don't have that person in your family, Jack Leiter as well. I believe it's Jack Leiter or one of the two. His uncle played in the MLB and he said, well, why not? If my uncle can get there, why not? Why can't I? So I think it's a really big help with these young players who have a familiar face in their family. They've been around that atmosphere for so long. They just come into the majors and fit in quite perfectly because unlike they've been here before. They just don't know it yet. They're ready for the game. And the development from these teams, like you mentioned, Evan, the Reds and the Tigers, who we'll talk about in just a bit, and even the Royals, who've been in this situation a lot, and they're seeing the results come from it. You're seeing that this is going to be a future great. And if I'm going to give one player comparison for this guy, and you guys know I am very high on this. You've seen it in my rankings for the shortstops and the middle infielders. I got to go to the guy who's playing with himself, Whit Merrifield. And I'm not going to say this just because of the versatility, because I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a versatile player. Maybe play the second base, but I don't think nothing more and nothing less. I think the way he bats, the way he brings a small ball game, he's going to be, I think, Whit Merrifield with a lot more swagger and definitely a lot more media attention around his name. He's going to be the future of this Royals team. He has a sweet swing. He has a terrific knack for the gaps and a terrific baseball IQ that some things you actually can teach. And I think that's going to be a subset of what he's been doing his entire life around his father, who's been a terrific MLB player himself. And I've heard this one thing, and Royals fans, let's hope this is true. I think it is. And I think it could be. This is a big name, big shoes to fill. I was watching his debut against I believe it was Cleveland. He played his debut and he hit that walk-off game winner to seal the win. And the MLB analysts were comparing him to the Milwaukee great, Robin Yount.
Okay.
Young, someone
Yount,
like that.
Yount.
Yep.
Mhm.
That is now, I've seen that guy play. I didn't see him play, but I've seen his highlights and I've seen his stat lines. I've seen everything about him that can show that he's a great player. That guy is a phenomenal small ball player, probably the definition of small ball players, and a really big dying breed, as we've talked about extensively on Breaking News Bears. Mateo, me and you have gone
I think Mario
numerous.
Froken.
Oh, am I frozen still?
We're losing.
Yeah.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Something about Robin Yount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I good?
You're good
Can
now.
you
You're
miss
good.
that
Okay.
entire
Yeah.
explanation?
No,
You said
sorry.
that you watched Robin Yount back in the day on
No.
your
Well, I didn't
with your
actually,
rocking chair.
Yeah, with my rocking chair. No, I didn't watch him obviously, but I've seen a lot of clips of him, highlights and stats. That's all I really got to work with, and of course, people's word for it, of course. And he's just one of the definitions of a small ball hitter. And I think Whit Merrifield is going to be, he's turned into a small ball type of hitter, and I think Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be the exact same way. I'm so excited to see what this guy can do. Mateo, I want to hear your thoughts on this kid too, just because
I give my comparison quickly. I forgot.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
forgot. I don't know. I'm thinking my player comparison, like as you were talking, and I see that. I don't know if he's going to play shortstop or third base. I'm just going to go from a third base perspective because it seems like that's where he's spending most of his time. Like I could see him evolving into a Nolan Arenado just based on his defense that we've seen so far. Again, like what, 4 or 5 games, but I mean, just the glove and his reaction time and just being able to make plays that aren't typical from like a regular MLB player. You know, I think the throw that he had at home was off his butt. Like he just, with his strength, just was able to get a one hopper to throw whoever it was out at home. But I don't know. It's just even the way that he's been able to hit it, just the power. Obviously, he hasn't had a home run yet, so I can't really say it's more contact so far. But you know, just development wise, I hope that that's what he can at least turn into, someone who's elite on both ends.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, my comparison is kind of similar to the whole Robin Yount thing that Mario was going down. I went for Michael Young. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. Shortstop, third base. Michael Young, shortstop, third baseman for the Rangers.
Yes.
I think it was like the early 2010s.
Sort of before the name does rebel. I do know who that is.
Yes. Sort of before they went on that World Series run. But he was an incredible defensive shortstop that could really put the bat on the ball, and that's what I see in Bobby Witt. Whether he decides to play short or whether he decides to play third, I know Michael Young moved around in his career, especially as he got older a little bit, but the glove was always there, and he was always able to consistently get on base, and had a couple of years where the power was really exceptional too. So Michael Young was a fantastic player in a really competitive AL West, and I think Bobby Witt is exactly that kind of player. Like he's the guy who's going to go up there and he's going to make contact more often than he's not. Like that's not a guy that you want to see come up to the plate. And he's a guy that can definitely lead a team to a lot of success, and I think the Royals are going to be looking at that. One point, if I can make, I know I kind of hate on the draft a lot, but I went back to look to see who was picked above Bobby Witt Jr. And I always say that it doesn't really matter what pick you get in the draft, but the 2019 draft, which is where Bobby Witt went, was really loaded at the top. Adley Rutschman went first, and he's a guy that we've heard about a million times.
Okay, so
catcher for the Orioles, who's going to be very good in his own right. Bobby Witt was 2. Andrew Vaughn was 3rd, who's had some really great moments already for the White Sox.
Right?
JJ Bleday, super talented outfielder for the Marlins, was 4. Riley Green would have been my pick for the Rookie of the Year if he didn't get injured. CJ Abrams for the Padres. Nick Lodlow, 7. Josh Jung was 8. Shea Langoliers was in the Matt Olson trade at 9. Like all the way down, 10 was the first miss in a guy named Hunter Bishop, but then 11 was Alek Manoah. This was a draft class that was absolutely loaded at the top. Loaded at the top. It looks like 9 out of the top 10, 10 out of the top 11 are going to hit. It's just ridiculous. Like not something you see.
Who drafted the one guy that didn't hit?
It was the Giants.
Poverty.
And again, it was 2019, so there's still a chance. Obviously, Hunter Bishop is still definitely a work in progress. But 10 out of the top 11, I can confidently say are solid picks. Those are hits, and that's not something you see all the time in a draft class. So there's this new wave of players that's going to be coming up with Bobby Witt is going to be a generational wave of talent. That's for sure.
That could be one of the greatest draft classes that we've
very
seen.
Well, could.
I mean, MLBs, I would say, is almost like the hardest one to break out in, just because you're going or hardest to determine because you have to go through so many stages in order to get to the MLB. But I mean that that class
I can't say I've ever seen that much talent in the top like 10 picks before. Like that's crazy.
No, usually you only see that like in the top 5, but like there was not really one. I mean, except for one. But like, have you ever really seen almost like 90? That's like what 95% of the picks are at least projecting to be a hit, except for the Poverty Giants. But you know,
yeah.
But I think that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
we got
Speaking
one
of
player.
speaking of the Poverty Giants, Hunter Bishop, the guy that they picked, went to Arizona State University, and that segues nicely into our next player.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Spencer Torkelson, who also went to ASU. And I mean, was given the glove from Miggy to be the first baseman. Another guy who will big shoes to fill, but he's been able to fill. I think he actually just got his first hit today.
Nice.
And this is the craziest thing that I saw. So Spencer Torkelson was born in 1999. His first MLB hit came off Rich Hill, who was drafted in 1999.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really
so
cool.
So it's just like, well, I mean, it's cool for one person. I don't know if it's really like, but like when you think about it, it's like going in, like you're in like the hospital or whatever. It's like, that's the guy who's going to get his first, like he's going to get his first hit off me. It's just so weird sometimes to think of that. But you know, Spencer Torkelson first hit today, so congratulations to you. But I mean, definitely big shoes to fill. I don't really see much pressure, and I know this sounds like stupid to say just because it's Miguel Cabrera he's replacing, but I just think like the media attention in Detroit isn't great. Like you're not really, you know, obviously Miggy is one of the only guys that they really talk about as of late. Obviously Verlander, Porcello, Scherzer was there. I mean, God, who else was in that gauntlet? Robbie Ray was in that pitching. I mean, like they had a gauntlet of pitchers and
this goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean the list. I mean, like they were. I mean, that's like the Legion of Boom with Seattle Seahawks. If you want to refer to like a football, like just another comparison, just a rotation that was loaded. And since then, you know, guys left. I just don't really see media attention there that great. And I feel like even if Spencer Torkelson starts off a little bit slow, and we also Mateo has brought up before that like Detroit isn't the best hitter friendly. Like we saw how Nick Castellanos was leading the league in doubles. So even if he doesn't hit a bunch of home runs at the beginning, I think they'll understand like ballpark metrics doesn't really favor guys like even like just batters in general. But Mario, I just want to ask you, Spencer Torkelson, obviously the first overall pick in what was a loaded draft class, to say the least, absolutely crushed it at ASU. I definitely had a lot of high expectations going in. I feel like he's at least gotten there, you know, has made some nice plays at first base. But what are you thinking so far? Player comparison. I actually gave my player comparison as Miguel Cabrera. And I know this sounds weird, but I just think like, I don't know. I just feel like if there's anyone that could fill in the shoes of Miguel Cabrera, it's the guy that's been around him the most, at least as a rookie. And I feel like Spencer Torkelson, I mean, being in the media and being in the spotlight isn't something new to him. Like ever since he's been like 14 or 15, most of these guys have already been like interviewed, you know, what's it called? What's the game? What's the prospect, like the USA prospect game?
Perfect game.
The perfect game. Yes, I'm sorry. That's what I was saying. Like these guys have already been around the media, being scouted, attention, all that. I just think like having segue into that is probably the most ideal situation. I definitely don't think bringing in a different first baseman would have been right. I think giving it to Spencer Torkelson was great. Mario, what are your thoughts on him?
This guy, man, he is a fun character to watch. I got to watch a little bit of him when I was dipping my toe into college baseball days a couple of years ago, and I watched really extensively into the Pac-12. That was my go-to, and Arizona State falls within those regions, and so is my favorite team, Oregon State University. But this guy's swing is just, you look at it and it looks so like complicated, what he's doing, how much power he gets behind it, but he just makes it look so smooth and he sees the results from it. This guy's going to be a terrific talent. I think he can play the third base side too. if I'm
Yeah,
not
he
mistaken.
did a little bit at ASU.
Yeah, so he's very versatile, and that's another plus on his part. But I got to give a player comparison, and it looks like a little bit of a similar stance in some sorts. We all know he has a pretty wacky stance. He just got traded to his he just got traded to his hometown team in Matt Olson, a very weird stance. And I know this is going image for image here, and that's always never the case. A lot of players coming up do model their stance after someone. I wouldn't really be too shocked if maybe Matt Olson was model off of Torkelson, or Torkelson models off of Olson, but that's really picking at straws. But what I'm trying to say is that the way these two handle themselves at first base, both defensively, offensively, they can find the gaps, they can make the home run hits when they need to, they can be clutch. And I think Torkelson's going to adapt well to Commercial Park as well. So I think everything is looking up for this kid, and those are some big boots to fill. You mentioned Miguel Cabrera. I can't see it being too far off with Matt Olson. Two phenomenal first base talents, and there's so many you could choose from. Mateo, I'm sure you got one ready on cue for us here, but no, the Detroit Tigers have an absolute win here. This guy's been covered and coveted for so long in his career, since he was, like what you said, at 15, 16 years old. He's I hope they didn't rush him. I know he was drafted in, I believe, 2020, if I'm not mistaken, or it could be 2021, one of the two. Was it 2020?
2020.
2020. So you're giving him 2 years. I'm not going to say if that's good or bad. We've seen players who've done extremely successful things in the MLB after no time, or after very little time at all. So pick your poison, but could maybe be, and don't be frightened if it is like this and it plays out this way, Tigers fans. If he doesn't hit his first year and he maybe needs to go down a little bit and find his groove, but regardless, this guy's got everything it takes to be a great first baseman in the MLB. And I'm just hoping he really prove it and back it up with those results.
Yeah, no, for me, I mean, obviously we all saw the thing that happened with Miguel Cabrera, gave him his first baseman's glove, symbolic sort of passing of the torch there. I think the Tigers have, definitely made the right choice about bringing a guy in who can definitely handle the situation, has been ready for the pressure and definitely wants to get into the situation. But I don't know if I'm just feeling like a bias towards classic Texas Rangers today, but my player comparison here is Mark Teixeira.
Wow, I see that.
A guy actually with a very similar batting stance to Spencer Torkelson and Matt Olson. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he's, sort of got the bat out there a little bit. Teixeira, obviously a switch hitter, Torkelson not. That's, the one flaw that I have in the comparison. Horrible comparison. I know it's terrible, but no, I think they're very similar in the way they put the bat on the ball for average. And I think the power numbers are also very similar. I mean, Teixeira is a guy who had, really great surges of power early in his career, and then sort of saw that resurgence as he went to a more hitter-friendly ballpark in Yankee Stadium. And, Torkelson's not playing at the most hitter-friendly ballpark right now. We know Old Texas wasn't necessarily the most hitter-friendly ballpark for Teixeira either, but he was a guy who came in as a really highly touted prospect, a lot of hype around him, and he absolutely mashed the baseball after he took over at first base. And I think, it's a very similar situation that we're seeing with Spencer Torkelson. Their swings are very similar, their bat passes are very similar, even down to that stance, the way that Mario was talking about Matt Olson. I think it's a mirror image, despite the fact that one's a switch hitter and one's not. But I see great things ahead for Spencer Torkelson, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting to watch all these young guys. I've never been this excited about like rookies in the MLB. I don't know what it is about these three guys, but like it's incredible to see. I mean, they came up so quickly. Hunter Green, a little bit of a setback. I think they were hoping to get him in during the COVID year, but it was kind of just like complicated, all that shortened season. What are we really going to do here? But he's finally up in the MLB, and I'm excited to see what these guys turn into. It should be fun to watch, but I think that will conclude it. It was been a fun episode. Opening day, opening weekend finally is here. So I mean, definitely more weekly reviews, a lot easier to get opinions on teams, where they stand as the season goes on, and maybe we then look back at our first few episodes and kind of see like what were our thoughts at the beginning of the year and how.
Well, we know Mateo has been, that's for sure. He's got his boy Connor Joe.
I got Connor Joe on lock.
Hey, Connor Joe for.
Look out for Stephen Kwan, another rookie that we didn't mention here. Stephen Kwan, Cleveland Guardians. 26 swings this year, hasn't missed once.
And do you want to know what university he went to?
Keep an eye on
what university he went to? Oregon State University.
Oregon State.
We got Adley Rutschman. We got Michael Conforto. We got.
Keep an eye on Stephen Kwan.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I don't know what his love is with OSU, but we'll hear more. Yeah, well, you're about it. Like great colors, man. But yeah, I think that will do it for episode 12. It's been fun just being able to talk about some of these teams,
Absolutely.
what's going on, what's happening, some of the rookies that we're looking out for. But excited to see what this becomes. It's going to be a fun year of baseball, a lot of competitive teams. And I still think it still could very well be anyone's championship here. We've definitely seen a lot of contenders that are coming up. Uh, and I love it. So that will do it. Thank you guys.
See it.
Take care.